Good afternoon. Is that Ed? We're just waiting. We had 17 people sign up for this. So right now you're the only person that's joined. And I just enabled you to speak. So can you hear me? Oh, okay, there's Carrie. Carrie, I activated you can speak.
Can you hear me?
Okay,
Ed?
it sounds like that's Ed. And Carrie, you're there, but it looks like you're muted. So where are you from, Ed? What's university?
University of St. Thomas, Houston.
Okay, and have you used StockTrak before?
No.
Okay. Carrie is here. I believe that's the Carrie from Clemson, so she's a longtime user. Let's see, Ryan Clark just joined, so I'll allow Ryan to talk too. So, Ryan, I just enabled you to speak. Curious what university you're from and have you used StockTrak before?
I am at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and I have not had the opportunity yet.
Okay, good. Okay, we're getting a couple more people. Okay. Yeah, it looks like Jake is here now. Is Jake enable you to speak if you want to introduce yourself? What university you're with and have you used StockTrak before? Okay, maybe Jake's muted. Okay, so it looks like we got about 5 people here so far. we had about 15 people sign up for this. So it's kind of what we experience is about a third of the people end up showing up for this. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I only had this scheduled for 30 minutes. And this idea is an introduction really to StockTrak for people that have not used this before, or that maybe have used this a little bit, but are not taking advantage of all the features that we offer. So yeah, my name is Mark Brookshire. I'm the founder and CEO. I started StockTrak over 30 years ago. Had the idea as a student at Georgia Tech. Why are we just reading about investments? Why can't we have $1 million monopoly money and pretend that we're working on Wall Street and building a portfolio? So I set out to write a virtual trading code, and that was the launch of StockTrak 30 years ago. So let me hop over to my PowerPoint. I'm going to make sure that, okay, so can everyone see the PowerPoint, or are you still seeing me?
Yes, we can. PowerPoint.
Okay, great. All right. So, so StockTrak started out as this virtual investing and portfolio management tool. And then about 10 years ago, we created a personal finance simulation that's starting to become very popular at high schools and universities in a personal finance class. So I'm going to talk about these two products. And again, this is just a quick flyby with just to give you some ideas. And then me and my team are happy to sit down with you anytime this week or next week, whenever it's convenient, to do a little bit of a deep dive on a one-on-one basis. So what I want to do today is explain the functionality of StockTrak simulation. I want to review the newest features because we're constantly adding new things to StockTrak. And so people that have used this for a while may not be aware of everything that we do. And I think it's just important because we're adding new features as professors ask them. So I know if a couple professors want a feature, then I know that there's probably dozens others out there that would use that feature if they knew it was available. And the last thing I want to do is share the best practices and show you how to get the most benefit for the maximum number of students at your university. Just quick background. Started StockTrak in 1990. You all know us as StockTrak for college students. It's our college portfolio simulation. It is the name of the company as well. And we have other sites. Wall Street Survivors, our public education site, targeting towards adults that want to learn about investing. And then we also white label our various virtual trading platforms for lots of banks and brokerages around the country. And so high level, just want to make sure everyone understands what StockTrak is and what it can do. The idea is that professors can customize the virtual trading rules to match class objectives. So I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive in that. And then one of the newer features is assignments. So instead of just telling your students, here's 100,000 or here's $1 million of virtual money, I want you to go make some trades. We really want you to use these assignments to help the students explore all the functionality of StockTrak and take advantage of the embedded tutorials. So with the assignment features, the idea is you could say to your students, in the first 2 weeks, say class starts September 1st. So you can say from September 1st to September 14th, I want you to watch StockTrak's video on what is a stock, what is a ticker symbol, how do I get a quote, how do I make a trade, and what's the difference between a market order and a limit order. And then you can say, I also want you to trade 5 different stocks. So you set this up in the assignment feature of StockTrak, and then it becomes self-grading. So when the student logs in, he'll be able to see he's got 10 tasks to do in the next 2 weeks. And then you as the professor, when you log in and go to your reporting tools, you'll be able to see what students have completed the assignments and what haven't and who hasn't. So a lot of professors, when they first start using StockTrak, they just create one big assignment. And they might just say, over the next 12 weeks, I want you to trade 10 stocks. I want you to trade 3 ETFs. I want you to trade 2 stocks that pay dividends. I want you to buy a call option. I want you to write a covered call. I want you to trade a bond, trade a mutual fund, and then trade 2 futures. And I want you to use 5 market orders, 5 limit orders. So you can just set up a variety of things that you want your students to do. So a lot of professors start off with just one big assignment, but I think it works better to really granularize those assignments so that as you're talking about options or talking about stocks in the first couple of weeks, your assignment should be focused around stocks. You don't want your students to get ahead. And then as you get down into October, maybe you start talking about bonds and mutual funds then. And then maybe in November, you're talking about options and futures. So you can really customize what you want your students to do for the whole period, for different months, or if you want to make it real tight, by a week or so. So it's a really good feature. And right now we got about half of our professors on StockTrak are using the assignment features. And so, like I said, that makes it essentially self-grading. So I know professors are busy. They hate taking on new tasks that gives them more work. But trust me, the students are going to enjoy this. And then the assignment feature makes the grading easy. It's just, did you do what I asked you to do? Talk a little bit more about that. And just in terms of the security types, I just want to remind everybody that what we trade. We trade U.S. stocks and ETFs, U.S. mutual funds, U.S. bonds, both corporate and treasury. We trade U.S. options. With the options, we have 2 trading pits. There is a single leg pit, so you can go in and buy a call, or you can go in and buy a put. And then we have our spread trading pit, which we have over 20 multi-leg trades that handholds the students so they get those trades correct. So you can have them write a covered call in one trade. You can have them write an iron condor or a butterfly in one trade. And if they start doing the buy, the sell backwards, or the ratio of the different legs, it will correct them and say, no, you're not following the rules of this trade. So the option spread pit is, I think, the neatest features that we've added in the last couple of years to StockTrak. We do trade U.S. futures. We trade U.S. future options. We have a great Forex pit. We trade spot commodities. And the spot commodities are set up so that you might have your students say, I wanted you to go buy 300 ounces of gold. Okay, I want you to buy 1,000 ounces of silver. It's like, okay, well, why are we having our students buy this? Well, now when you start talking about futures, now you can say, that silver and gold that you bought in week 4 and 5, I want you to hedge that position with the futures contract. So now you're making the students figure out, well, how many contracts do I need to trade? And do I need to go long or short on the futures to hedge the spot contracts? So a lot of the futures and options classes will start off having students trade Forex and spots and ETFs to get some positions. And then as they start talking about futures, it's a great time to say, okay, now go hedge those positions that you bought earlier in the semester. And we have added cryptos. I know professors seem to have a love-hate relationship with cryptos, but we added it. If you want to enable it, we have a feed of over 100 of the most popular cryptos on StockTrak. It's its own trading pit. So if you enable it, the students will be able to access it. Other important thing here with all these trading pits is you don't need to turn them all on in week 1. When you set up your class on StockTrak, if you only want them to do stocks, ETFs, and mutual funds and bonds, you just have to enable those trading pits. And then maybe in October or November, when you start talking about options and futures, you can log in as the professor, edit that contest, turn these on, and then say, hey, students, by the way, I just turned on options and futures. So now I want you to go do some options and futures trades. So that's another way to control what your students are doing so that they're doing what you want them to do in the week that you're talking about it in class. Okay. And just to be clear, our US stocks and ETFs, futures and future options, Forex, spots, and cryptos are all traded at real-time bid-ask pricing. Our global equities, right now we have over 50 global exchanges coming in. Those feeds are a lot pricier, and right now a lot of them are delayed or end-of-day pricing. So when you go to turn on the international markets, it will tell you what the delay might be on those markets. Another feature that's important in terms of helping students learn and helping you grade is you can turn on trade notes. And when you turn that on, as a student goes to make a trade, they are required to leave a note as to why they're making that trade. Once they hit submit in the trade, that entry goes into their trade diary. It's etched in stone, so they can't come back and change it later. And so a lot of professors are using this also as part of the grading tool, is not only do you want your students to complete the assignments that we talked about up here, but when the students turn in their final report, you make them turn in their trade notes, and that way you can see what was the rationale for making each of these trades. I think it's another great academic tool. We have added over the years Sharpe ratio calculations, Jensen's alpha, and the trainer ratio. But more and more professors are saying, we need to de-emphasize percentage return and really talk about a risk-adjusted return. So these calculations have all been updated about 4 years ago. And so I encourage you to take a look at that and consider that as a different way to evaluate your students. And so keep that in mind, and we can talk about that later also. And then I got some things here that professors have asked for over the years that we're trying to make sure that everybody knows about. And one is a pre-populated portfolio. So we have more and more professors that are becoming more familiar with StockTrak, coming up with a unique way to use it. And so they might say, okay, everybody, on day one, you now work for Fidelity Mutual Fund Company, and your job is to outperform Mutual Fund X. So when you log into StockTrak, you're going to have a portfolio that currently matches the Fidelity Magellan Fund, say. And we might pre-populate that with 20 to 50 other current positions. And now the student's job is to outperform the fund managers at Fidelity. But can you outperform the Fidelity Magellan Fund or whatever fund you want to start with? So that's become a real popular feature. And I know I get excited about this, so don't hesitate. I think I've turned everybody off of mute, so feel free to ask a question if you want to pause. Another thing that professors have asked for over the years is the ability to add cash deposits or withdrawals or buy and hold accounts. And the idea with the weekly cash deposits is some of the professors that are using StockTrak, they create this environment and mentality where the students are working at a firm on Wall Street. They're actively competing to outperform some benchmark. They develop a portfolio, they get it balanced perfectly, and then the professors could sneak in over the weekend and say, you know what? You all started with $1 million. Everyone's doing so great. Somebody just deposited another $200,000. So when the students log in on Monday, the perfectly balanced portfolio, they got a big deposit, and their assignment for that week now is to rebalance their portfolio and just make this more lifelike for the students as if they're managing money for a client. Not only can you do the cash deposit, but you can also withdraw. A couple of weeks later, you say, hey, you know what? Somebody just bought a house, so they withdrew $500,000 from your portfolio. And now your account's fully leveraged, and you need to start liquidating positions. So we call this shocking the portfolios. So surprise the students on a Monday morning when they log in and have a big cash deposit or a big withdrawal taken out. That's the shock deposits and withdrawal. The weekly deposits and withdrawal is you can just say, you know what, I want my students to start with $10,000 in StockTrak. that's a manageable amount. It's more realistic for the students. You know, some professors say students can't figure out how to spend $1 million. I only want to give them 10,000, and I want them to treat it like it's their real money. And then what we do is every Monday, maybe we deposit another $5,000. So now over the course of 12 weeks, that $10,000 might end up growing to 50,000 or 100,000, depending on what you deposit for your weekly deposit. And now that makes students pay attention to the market every week. It kind of encourages them to make a trade or two every week. And then also teaching dollar cost averaging, because the students are constantly adjusting their portfolio and adding to their positions. And the other thing here is the buy and hold accounts. So a lot of professors have said, you know, Mark, I like the idea. I want my students to do everything that StockTrak has. I want them to be actively trading because I want them to learn, because it is a simulation. But I also want them to take a Warren Buffett approach too. And I want them to have a second account where they're only allowed to do maybe 30 trades over the course of the semester. So when you register for your StockTrak class, you can also say, I want an active account and I want a buy and hold account. Then, of course, StockTrak has lots of reporting, so you can see what your students are doing. You can read their trade notes. You can see if they're completing the assignments. You can view the class rankings on the multiple different ways to rank the students. So the professor reporting is there. And just for those of you that haven't used StockTrak for a while or haven't used it, just want to show you the admin features. So when you log in as a professor, you will have an admin button over here on the right. The students do not have this. As a professor, you can click on this and then you can view, you can create your new session or class. You can edit your session settings. So this is where you can come in November and turn on options and futures. You create your assignments. You can view your assignments. You can edit your assignments, and you can take a look to see how your students are performing in the assignments. And then just from professor point of view, guides and tutorials for professors, registration files. If you set it up or you want us to invoice the university, and there's a make a payment button there as well. So lots of tools for the professor. And then when you're creating your class, we keep trying to simplify this because over the years, we've added a lot of customization, but we're trying to make it simple and helping professors get started. So when you click on that create a session, you're going to come to this page. We want to know what you're teaching, what grade it is. If you're using a textbook, and the reason we ask for the textbook is there's some textbooks out there that still have coupons in them. And so if you're using a textbook that might have a StockTrak coupon, please let us know what the name of the book and author is in this dropdown. And then when the students come to pay, they will be asked to enter that coupon code. The pricing for StockTrak, the most popular one is the silver level. It's 14 weeks. Students are allowed 300 trades. It's $33.95 per account for that semester for those 14 weeks. You can have 2 students' names on an account. So if you want to put your students in teams of 2, when they register, they can put both names and both email addresses on the account so they can share that cost, but they're not each having their own portfolio. It's still just one portfolio with just one login. It's just 2 names are associated with it. And then as you go down on the session details, we want to know when you want them to register and then when you want the trading period to start and end. The registration date is set up this way because some professors say, you know, I don't want students registering for this in the last week of class and then sitting down and doing all 50 trades that I asked them to do. So some professors say, I want to make sure my students register in the month of August, but then they'll have until November or December to finish all the trading. Estimate number of students in the class, time zone. If you want to change the time zone, it defaults to Eastern time. We do have a Wealth Wizard, a little AI tool that we've been working on for the last 2 years. I'll talk about that in a second. Students can earn badges if you want to add some gamification to it. We can do that. And then if you want to take the express setup, then the rest of the settings are all come in at our recommended settings. If you want to customize each one, you can go into the customization. And there's over 35 features that you can customize with StockTrak. Don't want to go over all of these, but you choose the currency that you want your accounts in. You choose the initial cash balance. You choose the interest earned on cash. If you're allowing margin, what interest do you want us to charge the students? And then we have volume limits, the risk-adjusted calculations. If you want to allow them to trade on margin, allow them to short sell, allow or disallow day trading. If you're enabling the pre-populated portfolio, that's there. And then with all the security types, you choose what exchanges, you choose the commission, you choose a position limit to force diversification. I really recommend a 10% position limit. If you go with a 25, a lot of students will sit down and they'll buy 4 stocks. We want them to get engaged and do research. Okay, creating the assignments is also an easy process. Just like building the class, you name the assignment. So you might call this September assignment, start September 1st, end September 30th, and then you indicate what you want your students to do. So we have some beginner stock lessons from what is a stock, what's a ticker symbol. The watch videos down here, you just check the box. And then underneath this, it'll say number of trades, number of stock trades, number of option trades, number of bond trades. So you can customize the assignments both in terms of content and in terms of their trading. We do have a budget game. So I'm not sure how many of you are teaching a personal finance class, but over the last 10 years or so, we've added a personal budgeting game for personal finance classes, which gives the students a job. They graduated and they're paying 8 bills that we all pay, from the rent to car payment to utilities to food, etc. I'm not going to focus too much on the budget game for this one, but it is part of the site. And then when your students log in, or the way that students register is when you create that, when you create the class, like I was just showing you, StockTrak will send you an email link, and you share this link with your students. When they click on that link, that is a dedicated link that ties them to that class that you just created. So the students will click on that link, and then they'll be asked to pay for it if you indicated the students pay. If you indicated that you want us to invoice the university, then of course the students can just register straight in. And when they register, they're going to come up on a dashboard that looks like this. The assignments are listed at the top with the due date, start date, and end date. And then it will show them what percentage they've completed of that task. To expand this, they click here and it will show task. And then this all drops down and it will show them that they've got to read this article, watch this video, and make 5 stock trades before October 20th. This is their stock portfolio, their open positions, and then their watch list will all be stacked underneath it. When they go to make a trade for the first time, our little wealth wizard will pop up, and we've really spent a lot of time with the wealth wizard. And the idea is we want students to build a quality portfolio and an intelligent portfolio. So if you enable the wealth wizard and the students click here, the wealth wizard is going to ask the students a series of questions. How much money do you want to spend today? How many stocks do you want to buy today? How many different industries do you want to cover today? What is the dividend yield that you want this portfolio of stocks to have? And do you consider yourself an aggressive or conservative investor? And then what our wealth wizard does, it doesn't answer the question. Just the questions themselves we find to be educational for the students the first time. And then based on their answers to those 8 questions, it will give the student a question to type into ChatGPT. And we found that with a very specific question, ChatGPT does answer it in a very intelligent fashion with a good explanation as why ChatGPT is selecting each stock. So some of the professors are loving this, and some of the professors are saying, no, I don't want students to use AI. I want them to do the research themselves. But you might want to test it out yourself in a practice class and see what you think of it. Okay, so now the students have decided maybe they want to buy Apple. Our stock trading pit is as simple as we can make it. Students come over, they punch in the ticker symbol. If they don't know this ticker symbol, they can just start typing the company name, and it does a pretty good job of a smart search to help the students find the company. We show them the name, we show them the logo just to confirm that they got the company that they wanted. We show them the last price, the days change, a chart pops up here, typical things that you would find in your Robinhood account or your E-Trade account or your in any discount brokerage account. They can buy or sell, they can short or cover. The order types are market orders, limit orders, stop orders, trailing stop orders. So just what they can do in just about any discount brokerage account. So we try to make it as realistic as possible. On StockTrak, we also have quotes, charts, news, and research. StockTrak is not a Bloomberg, just to be clear. We don't compete with Bloomberg. I think of this more as the equivalent of Yahoo Finance. So there are about 30 different tools here on the left-hand column for students to do research on stocks, ETFs, and mutual funds. The budget game, just talk about this for a second. The budget game is set up, the students have a job, they live on their own now, and they have 7 bills to pay each month. So when it starts off, they see what their monthly budget might be, they can tweak it a little bit, and then they click on the die and they roll through the month. And as they get a 3, they might land on June 3rd, and then a random event will happen. Hey, on the way to work today, you had a flat tire. You had to pay $75 to have your tire fixed. How do you want to pay for it, with a debit or credit card? So it just is really just a money management game. The students see their credit score, the quality of life. They see if they have any bills outstanding, their savings account balance, checking account balance, and then their credit card and their credit card limit. So this also has a ranking. So if you're teaching personal finance, your students can have their stock portfolio and they can have their budget game portfolio. And that they can see how they're doing on the ranking, and that gets them motivated. And gamification is so hot right now that the students seem to learn better by playing a game. They don't realize that they're learning. As I mentioned earlier with the ranking, holdings, trades, assignments, notes, everything that the student is doing is available at your fingertips. And that's accessible through this admin menu option up here in the upper right. Click on the report you want, the report drops down, and then most of the reports you can export into Excel. So you can do your own analysis and archiving. And then just to summarize some of the unique functionality, I mentioned it briefly at the beginning, pre-populated portfolios becoming popular with more of a portfolio management class as opposed to just an intro to investment class. The AI Wealth Wizard helps students the first time through ask some intelligent questions that help the students really get started off with a good portfolio. The assignments are there that help you construct what you want your students to do during the semester with their StockTrak account, from trade types to watch videos to read articles. The cash deposits, whether you go weekly or just shock deposits, that's all there. The trade notes are there. And then we mentioned crypto, Forex, and Sharp ratio. So lots of little things embedded into the StockTrak platform to make it a great learning experience for your students. and to make it easy for you as the professor to set it up and to evaluate the students. And I just want to feature this one professor at Paul Cox at University of Bath. He called us last summer and said, you know what, guys, since I've been using StockTrak over the last 3 years, my class size have doubled. We've ended up recruiting more finance majors from other colleges throughout the university, because when students hear about his class, they realize, oh, this is such a fun class. And so people are converting to finance majors. And he said he's helping his students get jobs in London, because the way he teaches his class, the reporting that he makes the students do, he says the cream quickly rises to the top, and then recruiters in London are calling him and saying, who are your top students? I want to talk to them. And so his students are getting interviews just based on his StockTrak project. And he's a big user of the pre-populated portfolios with one of those scenarios I told you about. But he gives his students $100 million in a pre-populated portfolio. So he's making them act like this is their real job, and it's working. And then just some final thoughts here with what I call beyond the class with StockTrak. I know high school recruiting is important to some universities, and Ithaca College has taken StockTrak. They've asked for their own branded site. So instead of using StockTrak.com, we built them their own Ithaca College trading simulation, branded with their logos or colors and screen prints or pictures from their university. And they have their Ithaca College students register for their classes here. But they've done outreach to econ and business teachers around the university. They hold teacher education classes over the summer. They show the teachers how to use the site, and they run a stock trading game for the school districts around the campus. And then they give scholarships to top performing students. So right now we have about a dozen universities that are using StockTrak or StockTrak branded site as a recruiting tool. More and more campuses are starting to use our platform for a campus-wide financial literacy challenge or program. So because we've added that personal budgeting game that walks students through budgeting, savings, credit cards, building an emergency fund, introduction to investing, the University of South Carolina had a branded site. They do a financial literacy starts here program. And they want all incoming freshmen to access this site and go through some of the quick assignments that we built, use the budget game, and get introduced to the stock market. Bentley is another user of StockTrak. They have a branded site, and they use their site for high school recruitment. And one unique thing about them is they actually run Wall Street 101 camps over the summer. They invite students from greater Boston area to come to Bentley for 5-day Wall Street 101 camp. And they actually charge the students for these camps. So they use this as a profit center for the business school and their trading room. And then dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment is another thing we're hearing a lot of professors ask us about, that universities are offering classes, making them available to high school students, around their campus or throughout their state. And that if the students enroll in one of these dual enrollment classes, then the high school students can earn college credit. And that's just another recruiting tool. And the University of Northern Iowa, they've got a branded site that they use only for concurrent enrollment. So that kind of wraps things up. And I've kind of segued here into the branded sites and licenses. So StockTrak, some of these schools have a fully branded site. Other schools don't want the branding, but they just want a full license to StockTrak. And then most of our professors are doing the student licenses where the students pay. So there's 3 different ways to access the StockTrak platform. And be happy to schedule additional time for everybody to talk about those in detail. And then just one last page that's important here is on the StockTrak page. We recently added this site. If you go to universities, there's finance faculty, personal finance, and we've added university success stories and use cases. And this goes into a little bit more detail on how some of the schools are getting the most out of StockTrak or their site license or their branded site. So that's on universities, and it's the third option on the StockTrak platform. So that's all that I have here today, and be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have. Let me come over. I think everybody's been unmuted. So anybody have any questions? I'm happy to answer questions. If you'd like a one-on-one, my email is mark@stocktrak.com, MARK@stocktrak.com. So just email me and we can set up, I can set up a private Q&A session if you'd like. Nobody has any questions, and thank you very much for joining, and I hope to see you all register for StockTrak soon. Okay. Thank you. Ryan asked, do students lose access to the account once the trading simulations end? I believe they have access to log in for 2 or 3 weeks. The accounts are frozen in time. So if the class ends, or if you set the trading period to end November 30th, the accounts will be frozen at that point. So they can log in for another 2 or 3 weeks and access their portfolio. Or will they still have access? So yes, they'll have access to their account performance to reference for their report. Absolutely. And then, yeah, so in the class setup, Ryan, you decide if you want us to calculate the Sharpe ratio or those other measures. So if you turn that on, they'll be there on rankings. And if you don't turn it on, then we're not going to bother calculating them, and they will just be ranked by portfolio percentage. Okay. Okay, so Ryan, I think I answered that question. Anybody want to type in? Yeah, okay, so now I can hear you, sorry.
My unmute button went away for a second, so.
Okay. Yeah, so any other questions? Okay, so I'm going to be doing this again on Thursday, covering the same things. And then next week, we're going to have another webinar series going into a little bit more detail. And Connor will be running that webinar. And that will be specifically about creating your class on StockTrak and how to use the admin reports. So be looking for your emails from StockTrak for those webinars for next week. Okay, thanks everybody.